When you see a sleek, high-end laptop on a sales banner and think, I could snag a cheaper model for half the price, you're often setting yourself up for a lot of frustration. I've spent a good chunk of the past month testing different mid-range gaming rigs, and every time I try to stretch a budget, I end up dealing with stuttery frame rates, constant throttling, or a screen that just can't keep up with fast-paced shooters. That's why, before I even opened the box on the MSI Vector 16HXAI, I asked myself, does this machine really justify the premium price tag, or am I just paying for a brand name badge? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the primary reason people buy a gaming laptop. They want to play modern titles at high settings without having to lug a desktop around. The Vector 16 packs an Intel Ultra 9275HX, a 2.1 GHz monster that promises 8-core performance. In real-world tests like loading up Cyberpunk 2077 and keeping every eye-popping effect on, I found the CPU to be genuinely smooth. Frame times stayed consistently low, and the laptop never hit a wall that forced me to drop settings. That alone makes it a smart buy for anyone who refuses to compromise on visual fidelity. But raw horsepower isn't the whole story. The display is a 16-inch QHD Plus panel with a 240 Hz refresh rate. Most reviewers rave about resolution and refresh, but what does that look like in a typical day? I spent several evenings gaming in a modestly lit apartment, and the combination of 25601600 resolution with 240 Hz gave me crisp textures while still delivering buttery smooth motion. In fast shooters like Valorant, the high refresh made a noticeable difference in tracking. Enemies didn't blur as often as they do on 60 Hz screens. Even when I switched to a productivity workload, spreadsheets, video editing, code compilations, the extra screen real estate helped reduce constant tab switching. That said, the panel is still a WVA type, so you'll notice a slight shift in color accuracy compared to an IPS panel, especially if you're a color-critical photographer. For most gamers, though, the trade-off feels acceptable. Graphics-wise, the RTX 5080 with 16GB of GDDR7 is an intriguing upgrade over the more common RTX 4070-based laptops. In practice, the RTX 5080 moved me from high to ultra settings on demanding titles. For instance, on Elden Ring, I could crank up the ray-traced shadows and still stay above 60 frames per second at native resolution. The 16GB VRAM also means you can comfortably run texture packs that normally choke a 12GB card. If you enjoy modding games or using DLSS-enhanced workflows, the extra memory gives you headroom that many competitors lack. That said, the Vector 16 isn't without its hidden trade-offs. The laptop weighs just over 2.5 kilograms, which is reasonable for a 16-inch machine, but the chassis is on the bulkier side. If you're a commuter who expects to strap a laptop into a cramped backpack daily, you'll feel the heft. The cooling solution, while visibly impressive with its dual fan design and multiple heat pipes, does ramp up fan noise under load. In my tests, the fans hit a noticeable whine when the RTX 5080 was rendering a 4K video at 60 frames per second. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to consider if you plan to game in a quiet environment like a shared apartment. Battery life is another area where expectations must be managed. MSI ships this model with a 99 Wh battery, which sounds generous, but paired with a 240 Hz QHD Plus screen and a power-hungry RTX 5080, you'll see a steep decline once you enable high-performance mode. In my hands, the laptop lasted about an hour and a half of continuous gaming before needing a recharge. For someone who expects long-haul portability, think plane trips or coffee shop marathons, that's a clear limitation. Conversely, if you're primarily a plug-in gamer who sets up a dedicated station at home, the battery constraints become almost irrelevant. Now, who should actually buy the Vector 16? If you're a serious gamer who refuses to dial back settings, a creator who needs a robust GPU for 4K video editing, or a power user who values future-proofing, especially with upcoming titles that will leverage AI-accelerated features, the combination of a top-tier CPU, RTX 5080, and a fast, high-resolution screen makes a compelling case. The machine also shines for folks who appreciate the premium aesthetic of the Cosmo gray finish and the RG backlit keyboard, which, while mostly a visual perk, does add a bit of personal flair when you're gaming late at night. On the flip side, you should skip this laptop if you're primarily after a lightweight travel companion, someone whose budget tops out around $1,500, or a user who doesn't need a 240Hz QHD Plus screen. For basic esports titles, a less expensive model with a 1080p 144Hz panel could save you a few $100s without a perceptible hit to your gameplay. Also, if you're a content creator that relies heavily on color grading, the WVA panel's color shift may push you toward a laptop with an IPS display and factory-calibrated color accuracy. Practically speaking, the strengths of the MSI Vector 16 lie in its ability to